there's issues I would love to go on and speak about constitutionalists on other stations, but I think if they found out I was here, they would not want to be part of that.
Probably not. It's highly unlikely.
Yeah. Though KMJ has a whole process which Terry Bladdock shared with me. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
how they map out the news.
Yeah, well, and their whole speaker deal. I mean, need to do a little pre-interview.
Yeah, I always try to meet people beforehand if I can and talk to them for a while.
It does minimize the surprises somewhat.
Yeah. Well, the WildStar interview a couple weeks ago could have been very different, and I chose to be nice to him. He seemed like a nice guy, but there's some things in his past that I could have nailed him.
He was definitely entertaining on Tuesday.
Oh, absolutely entertaining.
Yeah.
If he'd gotten that answer to that question right, and I know where he stands, but he got it wrong, and that just killed his momentum.
Oh, the crowd! Yeah, everybody went upside down on that. That was actually, it was kind of funny. I was like, man, catch it, please, catch it.
Yep. Well, it is crazy to me that so few people in the grassroots are actually on the Central Committee. And I think that probably represents what happens at the state level, too.
There is a ton of establishment in the state and at the convention, but there is also a grassroots movement that's taken off, and you can see it. It's in the valley. It's mostly in the valley, Central Coast, and it's growing. It's getting momentum. There was a lot of momentum there, but unfortunately, the system is rigged. I mean, it's not conducive to we the people.
We're all ready when you are.
We're ready. And good morning. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Today we will be talking about the utter mess of the California GOP. I think there's hope with candidates. There's not a whole lot with the establishment, as far as I'm concerned. But before that, we're going to get to some opportunities to get involved, meetings you could make, events you could go to. We need to get off our butts. We need to act. Not just talk about it. We need to act. So, first opportunity to get involved is Sunday, May 15th from 3 to 5. There's a medical freedom rally at Clovis and Shaw. I hear there's typically about 30 people, 40 people. This isn't over. Look at all the bad bills that have come before our state assembly and senate that have to do with imposing what I consider to be COVID tyranny on people. This isn't over. They just know it's an election year, so they've kind of been a little quieter about how they've approached it. Don't think we're back to normal, folks. This fight's only just beginning. I'm sorry to tell you that, but that's the reality. May 17th, the Kingsburg chapter of Constitutionalist for California is having a meeting. That is at 6:30 p.m. at 15,000 Rose Avenue, and their speaker is a Holocaust survivor, Hans Berger. So there's not very many of those people left just because of how long ago it was. It's important to remember what happened in Germany, and I'm going. I'm looking forward to seeing that. May 18th, we have two different school board meetings, both Fresno and Clovis. Unfortunately, on the same night. Clovis starts at 6:30. Fresno starts at 5:30. So let's do Fresno first. 5:30 p.m. That is downtown at 2309 Tulare Avenue. Or is it Tulare Street? Street. And Clovis is at 6:30 p.m. at 1680 David E. Cook Way in Clovis. Final event I have on my calendar is the Constitutionalist for California Clovis chapter is having a meeting at 6:30 p.m. at the American Legion Hall. So that's a Thursday. The American Legion Hall in Clovis is at 508 4th Street. I hope you make something. If these aren't your events, find your place. Get involved. Make a difference. If we don't, we keep moving more and more towards an authoritarian sort of government. And you can define that however you want, but we look at what President Brandon just proposed in the disinformation board, kind of like Germany had. They clearly don't want you to have free speech. Look at the absolute meltdown they had over Elon Musk buying Twitter because they don't want free speech. Well, if we don't have free speech, we don't have a representative republic. Speaking of free speech and what happened, I have a friend, Lance Jackson. Welcome. You want to tell me a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Born and raised in Kingsbury, California. I'm a tree fruit farmer. And got involved in this whole political arena as a result of COVID and all the madness that erupted thereafter. After that, as time's gone on, I found my way to being a delegate for the CAGOP, and just recently got onto the Central Committee, hoping to effect some changes in the train wreck that's actually taking place in Sacramento.
Train wreck is it's like they decided to harness the value of the bullet train and lead it to nowhere. So you went last year to the convention. Were there similarities between last year and what happened this year?
Well, last year was all on Zoom. It was a Zoom convention. And it was just everything that could go wrong with Zoom went wrong. People weren't allowed to speak. People were stomped on, and mics were turned off, and it was just everybody was smashed down to the agenda that was the board of directors of the state. Excuse me. That was part of my reason for wanting to go to the convention in person this year, was to see, what's happening, what's going on, what can we do, how can we fix this, is there anything that can be fixed, and figure out a plan of action, figure out a fight. And so went down there on Thursday night. The convention was Friday through Sunday, and it was everything I expected.
So it didn't get better?
Oh, no.
From the Zoom?
No.
It was probably just a little harder. They had to be more creative in ways to shut people up.
Yeah, they instead of pushing the button on the Zoom call, you just mute the guy's microphone and call it a day, or you just don't allow people to speak. There was all manner of suppression of dissenting views that took place from the beginning to the end of the convention. It was astounding.
Well, you would have thought they would have worked some of that out, and the convention would be an opportunity to hammer that out and have the will of the delegates instead of the will of the powers that be.
Well, it is. I mean, that you would think. I mean, that's the intent. You have 1,400 delegate positions in the state, and these 1,400 delegates are tasked with directing the board as they see fit. Well, you didn't have 1,400 delegates present. I think there was maybe 400 to 500 delegates present, and God knows how many proxies. And so, of those delegates present, how many are establishment that are there versus grassroots that are there, and while the grassroots people probably had a higher rate of participation at the convention and in the committee meetings and the workshops and all of the stuff that went on, when it came time to vote, our votes were counteracted by the establishment rolling in on Sunday morning with people carrying proxies and voting the way that the chair saw fit to vote.
My understanding is the chair told them how to vote from the position of chair.
Yes, that's something that I've served on public boards years and years and years, and I've never seen outside of this
crap show.
arena. Yeah, I've never seen where when you bring a vote to the floor where the chair recommends this, or the chair is asking for a yes vote, or the chair is asking for a no vote, because the chair shouldn't be asking for anything. The chair should be presiding over the meeting and letting the delegates do their job, and that doesn't happen at CAGOP level. It's in all honesty, I think it appears that a lot of it is predetermined, because of the huge block of proxy votes that exist that they have control over.
Well, you said the numbers you gave would mean that there were more proxy votes than there were present delegates.
Oh, I would say so. I'm trying to remember the exact numbers from the voting floor, but there was, I think, there was a total number of votes that were accounted for of, I think it was just shy of 1,100 voting positions, and I want to say there was somewhere between 400 and 500 delegates, the balance being proxies.
So if the establishment owns those proxies, that changes everything.
Well, right. I mean, and the proxies are given by delegates. So the way that this works, I mean, so delegates are accrued by the different central committees. When a candidate runs for office as a Republican, they make it. I believe it's if they make it past the primaries, they're given X number of delegates,
depending on the position. How
right. And so you have this number of delegates for this seat and that seat, as well as delegates being given for to each central committee has delegates that are representative of the voter base, that the number of voters that they have. So that whereas Fresno might have, the central committee of Fresno might have 6 or 7 or 8 delegates, and you get down to LA and Orange County, and there might be 15, or San Diego. Who knows? But they have huge blocks of delegates, and if they don't show up, they submit their proxy form, and those goes off to
whether they actually gave permission with the proxy.
Well, the proxy, I mean, basically gives, it doesn't say vote this way. It says you have my permission to vote. So it doesn't.
In other words, you just put it. If you send a proxy, you've set it out free in somebody else's hands, and their will preside, or the chair's will in this case.
Yeah, it's the CAGOP version of ballot harvesting, basically.
Well, but doesn't that make President or Chairwoman Jessica Patterson kind of like a mob boss, just prettier? Well, I mean, if she's controlling everything before it gets there, she's influencing votes from the position of chair. She's censoring people.
Yeah, I mean, there was censoring going on. And during the endorsement speeches, basically the candidates were told that if you said anything derogatory or not in line with the board of directors' idea of what's true and correct, they were going to cut you off, and they did. I mean, they cut off three speakers. I mean, they cut off Rachel, they cut off Jenny Ray, they cut off, I think it was Howell, who was running for because the commentary wasn't lockstep.
We'll come back to that. I want to get to candidates, and I have some examples also. Okay. You started with committee meetings. What was that like? Was the will of the delegates heard, or was it more of the same thing, just on a smaller level?
Well, in looking at the agenda, I said, well, I'm looking at these different meetings that are going on here and there, and the first meeting I went to was actually it was actually a pretty useful meeting. It was a meeting of all the central committee chairs, and they talked about what was going on in their areas, and I mean that was it was interesting to hear that there's counties that are up and down the state that are kind of in the same boat that we are, and that they're struggling to get out of this RINO mayhem and get back to true conservative values, which is what we're all fighting for. What I'm fighting for, what we're fighting for as constitutionalists. What I'm trying to push back at the Central Committee is at our local level is get away from the, not, let's quit being so nice. Let's quit reaching. You keep reaching across the aisle and you keep getting your hand cut off.
Yeah, I want a red tent.
Exactly.
I don't need a big tent. I need a red tent. We need to resolve that first.
Right, and that was actually one of the things that was said at the committee chairs meeting. Was it was the chairman, I think, from San Luis Obispo County, and he basically said, we don't need to build this gigantic tent. We have a gigantic tent that's falling down. We need to build a red tent and bring people back to our core values, which is where we'll be successful. And you could see, I mean, the whole room erupted when he said that.
So the response of the delegates was, "Oh yeah,
the delegates that were there, and all of the chairs that were there, with the exception of this guy up in Stanislaus County, which is, anyway, he's a definitely two-horn rhino. The southern, the southern counties. Everybody in the interior, and especially in Northern California, were cheering. Because that's what everybody's been wanting to hear. That's why people were there.
They're there to change things.
Absolutely.
So they're the new breed of Republican.
Oh, and there was so many people there that had never. Is this your first? Is this your first convention? There was tons of people. This was their first convention. So, I mean, you can imagine there was a whole slug of people that like myself had never actually been to a CAGOP convention, and to see how things blew up was just astounding. I mean, everybody walked out of there shell shocked. It was crazy.
Well, you were trying to play with the swamp rats and you just didn't know what it was really like, huh?
Needed a big alligator gun.
Probably each one of you did.
Yeah. So that was a beneficial. That was actually a pretty good meeting. Following that, I'm going to go check out what this rules committee is all about. No, I think I'll just see what's going on. Well, as it turns out, the rules committee is where one of the jobs of the rules committee is to review and approve or kill bylaw proposals. Well, there was a dozen. No, I think there was 10 bylaw proposals that had been submitted, and the rules committee was to go through these and either say let the board know we approve of this or we disapprove of that, or the other thing was they could take no action. And
so by board you mean they send it to like an executive board?
To the full board.
To the full board.
Right. So the rules committee approves. Say the rules committee says, okay, well we approve of bylaw number 1 and we disapprove of bylaw number 2, and so they would submit the report to the board, which goes to the general session on Sunday that says the rules committee recommends approval of bylaw number 1 and rejection of bylaw number 2, or which they did more than anything, or they take no action and it essentially dies, which any of the bylaws that were proposals that they considered that they were unsure about, rather than put them to the delegate floor, they actually took no action, which they came back up on and in the general session through a procedural move, but that wasn't the intent. Basically the intent of the rules committee was to make those go away.
As if they'd coordinated with the larger committee or the leadership beforehand.
Oh, there was 10 proposals and they didn't go down the list. They bounced all over. So definitely. I mean, just the fact that they went from started with proposal number 5 and went like from 5 to 7 to 3 to. There was definitely an order of it had been pre-reviewed, and there was no action. The watching the committee at work, I mean, sitting there in the gallery, basically watching the rules committee. I mean, there's a half a dozen. There was, I think, probably 14 or 15 people on there. 4 or 5 of them never looked up from their phone for the entire meeting. They never, not so much as, I mean, they offered
So they didn't
nothing.
have to because they already knew what they were supposed to
Right.
do.
They offered nothing to the meeting. And so it was basically the chairman of the rules committee, which is this Bill Asaley from San Bernardino, somewhere in the South. He ran the meeting, and then when the bylaw proposal would come up, the creator of the proposal got 2 minutes to speak, and then it was supposed to be public comment, and then the committee would take action or would put it to either a motion and a second, or would either move to approve it, to pass it on, or not. Well, that's not the way it was handled. The maker of the motion, or the creator of the bylaw proposal, was given an opportunity to speak, and then on a couple of occasions where it was a highly charged proposal that essentially was going to remove the proxy, the existence of the proxy from the system. So one delegate, one vote, be there, or your vote doesn't count.
That's a crazy idea.
Right? So that proposal came up. Well, the creator of the proposal spoke for 2 minutes, and then the chairman stepped in and said, "Okay, well, that's okay. So we're going to take this to the committee now." But when there was a half a dozen people that were ready to speak on it, and so he basically ignored them. I mean, it didn't allow them to speak. And so he made some speech against it, and then looked around to the other committee members.
So the chairman got to speak.
Yes, against the proposal, and then looked around to the committee members while there was many people in the audience were yelling. I mean, all of us. It was a point of order. It was a violation of procedure, and the committee all looked at each other, and they took no action, and the motion died. And so that was one example of.
Did they even need to look up from their phones?
Well, not the ones I was looking at.
They had to pay enough attention to go, "Oh yeah, it's now time to vote no."
It was a voice vote, so they didn't have to look up. So it was insane, and that's just one. I mean, the meeting went on for over an hour. It was I think it was nearly an hour and a half.
So that sounds like we're deep in the swamp weeds.
Oh yeah, it was something you'd expect to see at the
Democratic National Convention,
absolutely,
or state convention.
Yeah, it was maddening, and there was, and there again, the rules, the gallery was full of a bunch of us grassroots people that had been there for this was our first time through this deal and trying to figure out what's going on, and it was. Whenever one of these proposals came up and people would line up, I mean, everybody was lining up to speak on it, and he just was shutting it down. It was like, oh, our time's too valuable to let the people be heard.
Or he just didn't want them to be heard, is the truth, because it had already been decided.
In all likelihood, yeah. I mean, there was a couple of times when a member of the committee actually effected a motion to on one of these proposals that got to the floor of the committee, but it died for lack of a second, or they voted no.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. When we come back, I wanted to kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about what happened to candidates. So I think there's a lot to be said there. And it's interesting the choices they made. They didn't pick candidates that, I don't know, are willing to boldly speak about freedom. They chose a governor candidate that I'm frankly embarrassed about. And I'll have some examples as to why. So we're going to go ahead. Oh, and before we go back, I want to say thank you to all the people. We are now opening up in new places. Apple Podcast. We're working on Google Podcasts. We're already on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. So if you like what I'm doing, please please subscribe. I do this because I feel that somebody needs to speak up, that this needs to happen. And I'm frankly scared to death with things like our current president proposing a minister of truth. Now, he named it slightly differently than that. But really, what it means is you will not be able to actually have your say if he got his way, or whoever's running President Brandon, because I don't think he's actually running himself. So that worries me. Stepping out and protecting freedom, protecting the Constitution is essential. The more I learn about the document, the more I realize that while those men, as all men, were flawed, the concepts that were set forth in the Constitution live throughout time, and they provide for a greater amount of freedom. We're going to go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Today I'm joined by Lance Jackson. He is a leader in Constitutionalists for California. He has also attended the last two California GOP conventions. And things are a mess. So we're going to talk about what happened with candidates. Not just what choices they made, which I question, though I get there's some room for debate there, but how they treated some candidates. But I forgot one thing. Before we get to candidates, they changed the rules about leadership being able to serve more than 2 terms. Can we go into that?
Oh yeah, that was one of the bylaw proposals that that was put forth, and the proposal was that currently the board is limited to 2 terms, and then they're limited out, and so actually it was Jim Brulte, who was a previous CAGOP leader, brought forth a proposal to give the entire board the opportunity to run for a 3rd term because they're doing such a stellar job so far.
Well, because we got so many Republicans elected in 20 and 21.
It's been incredible, hasn't it? It's it was laughable. Somebody in leadership there is convinced that they're doing such a fantastic job that they need to they need to have the opportunity to run again, and I haven't seen it. I don't think anybody else has seen it.
Well, are they just that disconnected from reality, or is it that they like their power, they found their place in the swamp, and we have a Queen Swamp Rat?
Well, yes, and they're doing the bidding of their masters. Which are not us. They're not, as it should be. I mean, it should be that the leadership is the board is working with the body that's being governed, just like our constitutional republic. But
so the power to the people. Instead, they've turned it around, just like California.
Oh yeah,
power is all in the hands of the elected few and the bureaucrats, and they don't care what the people have to say. Would you say that was fair of the California GOP?
Absolutely. I mean, they endorsed Valadeo. I mean, therein is that's in a very small nutshell. That's indicative of what they think of their constituency or the delegates, or however you want to look at it. It's they're not there to serve.
They're there to rule and tell us what we should.
Yeah, and to serve their own ends, to serve their own masters. And those, and they're definitely beholden. The leadership of CAGOP is beholden to powers higher than them. And it's not the people of the state of California.
That is a scary thing. Well, moving to candidates, there were several incidences of censorship. I think I have the Rachel Hamm quote. Here's where she got cut up right after this. I would really like to encourage the California GOP to stop acting like moderates or liberals. We are conservatives. That statement was enough to get her mic cut.
I don't even think she got to say conservatives before they cut it.
Didn't even get that last word in?
No, I mean you could hear it, but yeah, that's. I think when she said we need to stop acting like liberals, that was when they cut the mic.
Well, I want to point out that there should be two distinctions between the parties. And if Republicans aren't actually moving towards conservatism, even though there may be some moderates, then there isn't a real distinction, is there? So all you're doing is you've picked your team, not a set of values. And I don't believe that Jessica Patterson represents values. It's just she's the head cheerleader for our team.
Yeah. I mean, that's what she's been appointed to be. It's just that, I mean, seeing that happen where in a venue where we're supposed to be deciding on who we value as our leaders, who we value for to put into battle, who our gladiators are going to be, then they should be allowed to speak, and the voting body will make the determination. If that was over the line, Rachel wouldn't have got any votes.
Right. And she got to 51% or something.
Yeah,
she got most 55. Of the way.
55.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the, I mean, that's the whole problem though. If you can't, you're not giving you're not giving the voting body the opportunity to hear what the candidate has to say, and so how can you make an informed decision? So if any of the candidates had gone off the edge, well, it would have taken care of itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, they would have been judged in the arena of ideas and got no votes if they were nuts.
Exactly. So where is it that CAGOP leadership has the right to squash dissenting view? I mean, the whole place is full of dissent. They're talking about it was the motto of the convention was unified, or I don't remember what it was, but it anything about unity, it was not.
Well,
it wasn't from the moment we walked in the door.
40% grassroots trying to change something and 60% swamp rats. Is that approximately right?
Looking at if you looked at the vote, if you looked at the votes on the bylaw proposals that came to the floor, you'd say, yeah, that was probably, but of people actually there, no, because that's a part of that 60% was kids that showed up on Sunday morning with two proxies, their vote as a delegate plus two proxies, and they're doing what the chair says.
Well, I'm curious, how is it that kids, and by kids you mean 20-year-olds?
Yeah, your typical, what everybody referred to them as kids, they were probably young Republicans, interns, what have you, delegates that were not there for the entirety of the convention. They did not hear the speeches. They did not do anything except show up on Sunday to vote. And there was,
because you would think if you picked somebody that was young and impressionable, it'd be a lot easier to control their vote. Wonder why they chose those young people.
They understand the technology.
Yeah, that's it. So there was another instance. What happened with Jenny Ray?
Jenny gave her speech on Saturday afternoon, and there was some. There was a campaign donation, or there was some donation shenanigans that took place apparently on Friday night, and so Jenny she utilized a bit of technology and was able to broadcast a text to the entire delegate body, showing the donation or the contribution that Megan Dolly, who's the wife of
the now endorsed swamp rat.
Yes,
Brian Dolly.
made a contribution on Friday evening of over $40,000 to CAGOP.
And then magically he won.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy how that just all.
But they cut her
lined up.
mic when she tried to say that, right?
Well, yeah, she actually saved it to the very end, and she said, she started to talk about the contributions, and as they were cutting her mic, she pretty much shouted, check your text messages, and so about within a minute, the whole place was blasted with this tech. I mean, every delegate got a text message blast that had the actual. I mean, this was the page off of the Elections Commission, the reporting page, and there it is, 40,000. I think it was 40,500 or something like that. But
sure looks like a bribe.
Yeah, and it hit the books on Friday. So, I mean, it's incredibly bold move on their part. I mean, I can't believe that somebody would do that thinking they could get away with it, but there it is.
Well, and he then got the endorsement. I think there's some real problems with Brian Dahle. I'm not excited. I'm frankly embarrassed. I looked at his website. He claims to be a farmer, but I couldn't find any mention of water. Everybody that's a farmer, is there a more important issue?
Well, I mean, I'm a farmer, and the first thing I noticed from Dahle, I even had it in my notes that I took on his endorsement speech, was his top 3 items. Water was not anywhere to be seen, yet he touted that he was a farmer, and the first flaw was he said he was a family farmer for 25 years and was also in politics for 25 years, and I just those two can't coexist.
Well, no, because a farmer is a full-time plus job.
Yeah, so one of them was getting, but outside of that, he was nowhere in any of his speeches. It's been nowhere on any of his media. It's been nowhere on any of his on anything. I mean, he's done some social media stuff where they talked about it a little bit, but there's still nothing in print. His radio ad doesn't talk about it.
Well, you go to his website, folks, and look. There's nothing about water. His complaints about COVID, he never talks about the tyranny that we went through. His 2 biggest complaints about how Governor Newsom handled it have to do with the fact that boosters were too hard to get and testing was too difficult. That was his complaints. Nothing about the fact that our freedoms were stomped on. So this man doesn't care about our freedoms. By the way, there are about 3 or 4 candidates that I think are reasonable candidates. I absolutely stand and am endorsing Jenny Ray LaRue, but Sean Collins is a good guy. Daniel Mercury, I don't think has much of a chance, but I really like him. Anthony Tremino, I think, is a good guy. I hope that Dahle does not make it through the primary. And I hope that one of those other people I mentioned does, because it would be a win for the swamp if Dahle makes it through.
Oh, it'd be tragic. It will not serve the Valley well.
I don't think it'll serve California well.
No. Well,
pick your part of California. I don't think it serves California well.
Yeah, it's anybody that's running for any state office right now. I mean, any state leadership office has to know that. I mean, water is affecting more than just the ag industry. I mean, it's affecting all. I mean, we kind of all need it, and it's now transcending just the farmers, this, that, and the other, and but it's not being talked about very much.
Well, what percentage of the economy is related to ag in California?
Oh gosh,
I looked it up and I'm drawing a blank.
Yeah. It's. I mean, here in the Valley, I mean, we're good for 8. I think Fresno was $8 billion. I mean, it's a significant piece, and when you look at it by extension, it's not just the farm goods that are everybody's eating. It's also the jobs, and then those jobs lead to other jobs. I mean, and everything ladders.
Right,
down
it's this huge multiplier that.
Right, and so it's. I mean, when the "My Job Depends on Ag" stickers came out, well, whose job doesn't?
If not directly, it's still only a few steps away.
And so it's huge, and the farmers aren't looking for accolades for that. I mean, I mean, recognition is great, but how about, I mean, being treated fair would be good, you know, and this whole thing that's going on with water, which is a whole other hours,
another day.
It's just it's insanity. But you know, but now, and especially this year with the way things are going this year, now it's going to start hitting everybody again. And so even if you know, you're not going to be washing your cars, and everybody's going to be going back to synthetic grass, and I mean, it's just here it comes.
Here it comes. Another candidate that had something quite odd happen. George Yang is running for superintendent of schools, and during the votes, he had 206 delegate votes, and afterwards they amended it to 252. That's just odd.
I believe that was during the process of, so backing up, in order for a candidate to be able to get on the agenda for the convention, they had to gain a minimum of 200 endorsement votes by the delegates, and those were all done online.
I agree with all that. I looked at the whole list of delegates, and he's the only one that had an amended count.
Right. Nobody
else did.
There was many counts. I mean, every time I got it was crazy. After it was closed, there was, I don't even know. I must have gotten half a dozen emails. Oh, well, this is the count. 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 And it was so. Yeah, I mean,
well, but on the website there was only one that had an amended count.
Right.
I understand the process you're talking about.
Right.
Clearly, something else shady happened.
Oh,
or just somebody made a big mistake.
Well, of course. I mean, it's just their whole system. The whole system is lacking checks and balances. It's the electronic, the endorsement voting. You could go on there. You could go on to that website for this the pre-qualification, I'll call it, and you could pick everybody. You could pick nobody. I mean, you could pick whatever you want, and then you could go back and change your selection. I mean, you could do all kinds of stuff. There was no how it was secured. I couldn't tell you. It's
almost as if they need an election audit.
At best.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and take our last break. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Love this song. You know, my first guest was a Marine, and I played this in honor of him, and I just haven't been able to change because I just love this song. There's lots of other things that I thought about putting on, and I just haven't been able to make myself do it. We're going to go ahead and come back. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Today I am joined by Lance Jackson, and we are discussing the mess that happened at the California GOP convention. We still have one more candidate that got censored, and I kind of want to go over that a little bit, but then we want to move forward. How do we change it? Where is there hope? So, there was one more candidate. Rachel got censored. Jenny Ray got censored. Who was the other one?
Oh gosh, it was the insurance. It was the guy that was running for insurance commissioner, and I don't remember.
You remember what he said?
I don't recall what he said because he was. I think he was the first one that got zapped, and everybody thought there was a technical problem.
So you thought that free speech still existed.
What happened to the mic? It's like something broke. I mean, it was, and I don't remember what he said because.
See, I think if I was there, I'd have been yelling at the top of my lungs, and they'd had to drag me off.
Everybody kind of looked at each other and so what happened to the microphone? I mean, the audacity of it is just it's just astounding, and it's like you really did that. But
they were just warming up.
Yeah, and I mean, I hate to say it, but it was the insurance commissioner, and not a lot of people were paying a lot of attention. I mean, yeah.
Well, insurance apparently is a pretty touchy topic, huh?
Apparently. So, but there was definitely there was an inside guy and an outside guy, and I think Howell was the outside guy that got blasted.
How do you think they arrived at their choices for candidates?
No idea.
No idea.
I mean, I can certainly speculate on what on how they arrived. It was all establishment people. I mean, the guy that was that they put in against Rachel. I mean, that guy has no business being Secretary of State. You know,
well, she'll probably make it through the primary anyway.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe so. And you look at some of the other candidates, and they, I mean, even at the governor level, I mean, when Dolly gave up and gave his endorsement speech, I mean, he didn't. When does a political candidate not use up all their time?
Wow.
He left a minute. He left a minute and a half on the table.
I think I know what happened. He saw that other people got to 4 minutes in their speech and they cut off the mic, and he just decided, I'm just going to do a 4-minute speech.
I'm sure, and talk about the three things that were important to him, which none of them were water, and head on down the road.
Well, they certainly made a choice. I would never have agreed with them. All those people I listed would be, I think, dramatically better.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, there's no question.
So what's the path forward? I mean, obviously, none of us can do this alone.
What I see, I mean, one of the things I see that we can do, or that needs to be done, is this whole. I mean, we got to have bodies there. I mean, as far as the state goes, as far as these state conventions go, the only way that we could make any sort of headway is to have a presence there, and to have a presence there, that means we need delegates there. To have delegates there means we need to have delegates. And delegates that are able to go, and that are that are able and willing to go to these ridiculous things
that are expensive.
So
you could help sponsor a delegate if you knew somebody that was going.
Oh, sure. I mean, that'd be great, and realize the value. I mean, the biggest thing I think that for me was, I mean, having seen this for the first time, is figuring out how all these pieces fit together, and going, well, we just need to have our delegates show up. We just need to have our delegates. We need to have our delegation there, and that's the only way that you're going to be able to stand up to this onslaught of proxies.
Also, there's positions that there's never any delegates awarded for because nobody, the Democrat runs unopposed. Well, if somebody would step up and run, even if they knew they had no money and no chance of winning, they'd still get the delegates. So that'd be a way to change not California, but at least the California GOP. Right.
I mean, yeah, it's so, and that's I mean, exactly. That's what we have to do. We have to get people that are willing to I mean, if we're going to change the party, that's the only way we're going to change it is to change the leadership. The only way we're going to change the leadership is to vote them out. The only way we're going to vote them out is to have people to vote. Well, and so it's just, it's a microcosm of what's going on in the state to begin with. So if we can get people that are willing and able to get involved, then we've got a chance to turn this thing around. But outside of that, I don't see how we got nothing. I mean, trying to get people onto committees, trying to do different things like that, but you're still having to.
You have to change the leadership to change the culture.
Right. I mean, I asked our central committee people. I said, how do we get somebody on the rules committee? And they kind of laughed at me and said, "Good luck. All those people are appointed by the chair." So it breeds its own. I mean, it just perpetuates itself.
Well, obviously, they had the rules committee decide that they did such a great job that they get to run again.
Yeah. Exactly. So
rather than be termed out like the previous rules stated.
Yes. And apparently that rule comes and goes. I guess they following, say if the existing leadership was reelected, then in 2 more years they could say, well, we're going to bypass the term limit again, and so they can just keep going.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's just it's shenanigans.
So, Constitutionalist for California wants to do something about this, but we need to basically join with other groups. You said there's a Central Valley area that kind of were pretty like-minded, that maybe if we united, we could make a difference.
Yeah, there's other groups around. I mean, there's other groups in other parts of the state. There's it was valuable going to meet some of these other people, and been on some phone meetings with groups that are in the Bay Area and even down south. And everybody's on the same page. We're just trying to figure out how, so how do we coalesce before the next convention, essentially. And
almost like we need to have a convention and plan it out beforehand, at least with the leadership part of it.
Yeah, I think that's and that could be an option. But as we're well aware, I mean, sometimes it's very difficult to get leaders of different areas into the same room and have anything constructive come out of it.
Conservatives together is like herding cats.
Yes, wild feral cats.
Yeah. So why are you hopeful? Why do you think this can be done?
Because I'm a farmer.
Well, to have that job, you almost have to have eternal hope every year.
We are the eternal optimists. I'm not ready to give up yet. I think that if there's a way through, I think I see a way through, but can we get there? I don't know. But at least there is a beacon out there if we can see our way to get to it.
I see all these grassroots groups as beacons of hope because we want our American values and we want the American dream to survive. And we don't have free and fair elections, whether it's at the California GOP or the one we're having coming up June 7th. We don't have our democracy, so we need to fight for this, folks. Well, any final thoughts?
I'm kind of out of words right now.
Okay, well, I'm going to just say that Lance handles the emails at constitutionalistforcalifornia.com. And if you want to contact our group or find out about our group, don't hesitate to email. There's a link right there on the website. Lance, I thank you for coming in today.
Thank you, Eric.
This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 1550 KXEX, the best talk in town. Well, that's